Thank you all so much for coming. And to anyone on the recording, hello. Thank you for being interested in the info for futures. We're just going to talk for a little while about the information around this program, a little bit about us, and then there'll be time and space for questions at the end. And I'm going to pass it to Kristina just to go over what is happening during this presentation. End of thought.
Thank you, Jess. This is Kristina speaking, and you'll learn more about me in our introduction. But right now, I'll just go over our table of contents, which is written on the screen. So it says table of contents. We'll first do our welcoming, which the lovely Jess just did. Next, we'll go into some introductions of myself, Jess, and Joey. We'll speak a little bit about what Futures actually is. Joey is going to share some wonderful alumni stories of folks who have gone through the Futures program. Kristina, will run through some examples of our programming, and then we will go through the leadership skills that folks who join Futures will develop over the 13 weeks of our program. We will then go over the cohort information, the time, virtual options, and some other interesting futures programs coming up in the spring. And then we've got some time for Q&A. So for Q&A, you'll be able to unmute and ask us locally, but if the chat is easier and more accessible to you, we can always do Q&A in the chat. And if after the session you have a Q&A question you want to ask us tomorrow, we'll make sure that we have contact information for all of us. And if throughout this presentation you do have a question or a comment, please feel free to unmute or use the raise hand function or put in the chat, and Jess, Joey, and I will make sure that we take care of you. So I am now going to pass it back to Jess to introduce herself.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristina. It's Jess speaking. Hi, everyone. My name is Jess Watkin. I also go by Dr. Jess Watkin. I am a white lady with light brown hair. Right now, I'm wearing pink lipstick and a white cardigan. On the screen, I'm pretty sure I have a pink sweater vest on if you're looking to identify me in those photos. I have a PhD in disability and performance, and specifically accessibility performance, and developing accessibility practices for disabled folks, but also non-disabled folks. I am a blind lady, so I have limited vision in my eyes. I currently can't really see the screen. That is where I come from in terms of disability identity. I have my PhD. I'm also an artist as a blind non-visual artist. I work predominantly in performance texts. So I'm currently working on a non-visual script of working on storytelling and narrative that comes from a non-visual place. My research really focuses on how to best support artists and people in creating art, but also just being people in accessible ways. So artists who are making things for the stage, how do they imagine an audience that isn't just a seeing, hearing, normative person? So that's something that I do in my research. When I'm not facilitating, I'm also a facilitator. I've been working here at Access now since last year, worked with Kristina and Joey on developing this program. Before then, I worked at the Stratford Festival, facilitating anti-oppression workshops for folks. I've been working as a facilitator with the disability community for the past 15 years. I've been working with academic communities for the past 10 years, specifically facilitating all kinds of different things from working groups, research. I've taught a lot of classes. So I spent a lot of time creating space and holding space for disabled and non-disabled folks in ways that feel good for them and good for me, but also to think and grow and explore and learn and work through concepts that are kind of difficult. And so that's a bit about me. And I am really grateful and excited to share a little bit more about Futures. This is a project that is a really big part of my heart at this point. Really working with young disabled folks is something that I really, really love to do. So I am going to pass it on to Kristina to introduce herself.
Thank you, Jess, for that lovely introduction. I am Kristina McMullin. My pronouns are she, her. On the screen, I am the far right image. In that photo, I had longer blonde hair. I'm wearing a turtleneck and a black kind of jumpsuit. And today I have shorter blonde hair. I'm wearing light purple earrings and a black and white striped shirt. I'm a visibly and physically disabled white woman. I had been working, living, creating, dreaming in Toronto for the last 15 years. I started my kind of disability creativity career at an art gallery called Tangled in the heart of downtown Toronto. Tangled was the first fully disability-led disability art gallery in Canada. So very humbled to be a part of that part of disability culture in Toronto, in Canada, and in the world. I was there for many years, leading communications, marketing, programming, and a lot of projects that supported other arts organizations in Toronto, in Canada, and even broader North America build their access strategies. My expertise at that time was really in marketing, communication, and events. So worked with a lot of arts organizations, gallery spaces, theaters, production spaces, in how to make their events more accessible and how to ensure that disabled community members were feeling welcomed and feeling safe and feeling able to participate fully in those events. I then transferred slightly into academia and worked at Toronto Metropolitan University as a research assistant on a research project entitled Cripping Masculinity. And so that investigated how disabled men, both cisgender men, transgender men, and masculine non-binary folks use fashion and apparel as a way of enacting their identities. And so looking at clothing is not just something that we adorn our bodies with, but something that we build communities through, and build our own identities through. And that research project has been able to travel across North America with exhibitions in Toronto, New York, and currently is on display in Edmonton at the University of Alberta. I joined the team at Access Now in March and have been working alongside Jess and Joey since then in building futures. I didn't grow up with a lot of disabled friends. When I joined Tangled, it was really the first time that I was involved in disability community, and I was in my early 20s at that point. So I had a real passion for ensuring that the next generation of disabled folks have really safe and fulsome communities because that truly shifted and changed my life. And then I want people to be able to experience that at younger and younger ages. I, outside of work, am a big lover of cooking, a big lover of sports. So most nights I'm in my kitchen making dinner and yelling at the TV at whatever sports team is exciting or disappointing me. So yeah, we got a good Raptors basketball team. Very excited for our women's basketball team to start in the spring. And I lived in Vancouver for many years and was downtown Toronto during the Game 7 of the Stanley Cup back in 2010. So my love of sport and community is quite deep. And that's it for me right now. And I will pass it off to my lovely colleague and friend, Joey.
Thank you so much, Christina. And as you know, Jess and Christina said, it's been so wonderful to grow and develop futures. I am another one of the facilitators. My name is Joey Florence. He, him. I'm currently wearing a green sweater. I'm a white, non-disabled male with brown, dark brown, curly hair. In the photo that you're seeing, I'm the one in the middle, and there I'm wearing a polo shirt and black jeans. Yeah, and so a little bit about me is I also have a lot of work in the disability field, from starting in social work and developing different programs based on vocational or job development training, and now working in futures and social skill and community development. It's been such a passion of mine, and being able to help advocate how I can and build these communities that are just so amazing to flourish and see, as Kristina was saying, even at younger ages now, and building out communities where people do feel welcomed and warm and in safe hands is just such an amazing thing to be able to do and have some impact in. So it's been such an incredible journey. I'm so excited to tell you a little bit more about Futures and what we have in store. A little bit more about me as well. I also work as a board member of the Canadian Abilities Foundation, running different events there. As well as something that I love to do is music. I love playing music. I love listening to music. Anytime I can, I'll put on, music in the background. It's something that soothes me and yeah, and moves me as well. So that's a little bit of adventure. I love different adventures, going out, venturing out in Toronto, where we're all set up, and just seeing the world. So that's a little bit about me, my academic history, and yeah, and a little bit about what you're going to be hearing in Futures. I'm going to be sending it over to Jess to tell you a little bit more about the overview of what Futures is.
Awesome. Thanks, Joey. It's Jess speaking. So futures, we keep saying this word, and you're probably thinking, what the heck does that mean? Futures doesn't really give you an idea of what the program is, although I'm going to tell you about it, and then you're going to be like, oh, that's what. So Futures is a 13-week program. So as of right now, we are looking at a few cohorts beginning in the next few weeks in January online. And the 13-week program is really meant for young disabled folks, so folks from the ages of 18 to 30 who live here in Canada, and who are interested in joining a community of other young disabled folks, getting to know other people. So we really spend a lot of time getting to know ourselves, getting to know other people in the disability community from where you are and across Canada. And as well as developing a little bit more leadership skills. You've heard us talk about a little bit of leadership development. So a lot of one of the anchors that anchors in a lot of these program sessions are leadership skills. So ways to develop yourself, as well as develop a community to really focus on how to become a leader in disability community, but also beyond disability community. And so Futures is really a space. It's meant to be a program, a space for young disabled folks to learn, to grow. You can come in with goals like, I want to become a better public speaker. I want to learn how to be able to speak in front of a group of people. There are opportunities to do things like that. I want to learn how to connect more with community members. I want to learn how to make change. And those are all big things that are anchors and themes throughout Futures. So really our goal is to create practical space for you to practice those practical ideas, to develop a goal, to develop a project, to develop connections with other people. And that's ultimately something that's really meaningful to you. So we're going to go in as a bunch of disabled folks as part of the participants. But if you are somebody who is also really interested in environmental activism or international relations or transit policy and the we're in Ontario Disability Support System, like different kinds of things that don't necessarily anchor into a disability community. We are also a group of people that can support and foster and inspire you to grow into achieving some of those goals. So it's a program, it's a space to be anchored into. We come back once per week for 13 weeks. So there's an anchor point. You will see the same people at the same time every week. And then at the end of the end of the program, there is an opportunity to continue to be in touch with folks in the alumni program as well. So that is what the program is in a nutshell. On the screen, next slide, yeah. On the screen, there are 3 separate containers of how we've broken down the program. So we'll talk in a little bit about the different leadership skills that we'll work through in terms of the sessions, but we kind of have this overarching philosophy of how we structure the overall program. So the first thing that we focus on for the first maybe third of the program is our identity, who we are as people, understanding ourselves in relationship to disability community, Canadian community, and beyond. and really thinking in different ways. So a lot of those ways are creative, a lot of those ways are fun games, a lot of those ways are workshops. We'll talk a little bit about those in a little bit, but really focusing in on personal identity. And then the second part of the program, second, third of the program is really about community and community building in particular. Big thing about disability community is that we are good organizers. We're good at finding accessible ways of meeting each other where we are. And so if you want to learn how to do that, this is the section of the program that really focuses in on that. And so you start with yourself and then you start to turn to the others in the group, and then start to look beyond yourselves as the group, beyond yourselves within this program, and into actual communities outside of Access Now and Futures proper. And then the third and final section of the program is about social impact. So a big, huge part of this program is about how to give you the tools to make change and make positive change in your life, in others' lives, and in the communities around you. So, you might have spent a little bit of time in high school being told you have to volunteer, you have to go be at the soup kitchen, or you have to go and make change because the school told you to. And we live in a certain kind of world right now, that you may or may not want to make change in the world around you. This program is for people who are looking to find ways to make those changes that are based within community, that are based within the world around us. So this part of the program, we are now working more towards finding ways and practical tools to set you up to be able to leave the program and continue to make change in the community around you. So we will do some change making ourselves in the program. And there's also an opportunity to develop your own project, be it a podcast, or you could start your own event that's a protest, or start your own magazine. I almost said zine, and then I was like, is that relevant for the age range that we're talking about? I don't know. Am I old? Does anybody know what a zine is? So finding ways to make positive change outside of our program is the end goal. And so by the end third of this program, we're really hoping to inspire you to start looking at ways in your own community and with the other folks as part of the program to do that. How can you rely on the community that we built through the program to actually move outwards and make change beyond it? And I think I'm passing it off to Joey.
Yes, you
Yeah,
are.
beautiful. End of
Thank
thought.
you. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about alumni stories. So Jess was alluding to, the fact that once we do the program, what happens next. And a lot of what happens is a whole new venture that we have some stories of people who have taken those passion projects that Jess was talking about and doing a lot more with it. And so we have an individual here whose name is Julian. He was someone who went through Futures, really enjoyed the program, and even said this quote, which I'm going to read out, which says, I got a sense of community from Futures. I developed a sense of empowerment. And that's really our goal with Futures, is finding ways to empower every single person, whether it be individually or collaboratively, together to develop their empowerment within a community, within themselves, and to do things that they may have not believed they could have before or didn't really have the ground to. So one thing that Julian did, for example, is actually, you can go to the next slide there, is his activation project. So something we do at the end of, or leading to the end of the program is this passion project, is this activation project that everybody has their own idea or their own passion that they want to really work on and create something that's theirs, that they can share with people, and broaden that. And so for Julian, Julian found that the TTC, which is the Toronto Transit System, it can be very stressful for riders with different mobility challenges, because there might not be clear, and there aren't really clear indicators showing where accessible seating is when the train arrives. So Julian really highlighted this problem throughout Futures and specifically through this activation project. And so he created this petition where he was able to get people in Futures and even past Futures to the broader community to share this, and to add to this petition, where adding simple wheelchair accessible stickers on every platform would be able to greatly reduce things like anxiety or improve dignity and independence going on the transit system, making Toronto's system more inclusive for everybody. And this is just one of the examples that we have of just such an amazing, impactful project that came out of Futures. And so as Christina has changed the slide, you're able to see even more Futures alumni. If you do want to follow our Instagram, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen, or you can also, it's on the screen that says access .studio.official. That's our Instagram. We're sharing a lot of different stories of alumni, but also updates if we have different events happening, or things like that. So again, as we were saying, Futures is a way to build this community even more than we ever have. It's nationwide as well. So we have, as Jess was saying, we had a cohort from BC, which was so cool. So we're really excited to continue this development in this process. And I will be passing it to Kristina.
Thank you, Joey. Yeah, Julian was in our very first cohort and has been such a brilliant person for all of us to learn from. So yeah, please do follow our Instagram. It's great. And I am really excited to talk a little bit about one of our creative workshops. So as Jess went through, we have our three main pillars that we activate through different types of programs. So some are workshops, some are discussions, some are guest speakers, and then all fall into those three pillars of identity formation, community building, and social impact. And I wanted to speak today a little bit about one of our creative workshops that we do in that first pillar of identity formation. And this creative workshop is all about how you find yourself through things that already exist in the world. And we materialize this workshop through Blackout and Found poetry. And what's really great about Blackout and Found poetry is there's so many different ways that each individual can do it. There's ways in which you can use both physical and digital materials. So our folks that are joining our online cohort, you will get nailed art supplies once you register. So please do register so we can send you mail. And in that, there's some creative things that you can create with and that we'll explain with you. But we also realize that, disability is a vast experience and a vast identity. And for a lot of folks, physical and tangible creation is not as accessible as digital creation. So we've created ways to make found poetry through entirely digital means. So folks can use iPads, their phones, or even trackpads on their computers, again, to create poetry from materials that exist in the physical and digital worlds. And on the screen right now, we had two images, one which is a photo of just an art basket with lots of clippings from magazines and books. And on the right-hand side, it's just a list of these digital found materials that folks can work through to create their found poetry. And on the screen right now, I have a couple of examples of what found poetry is. So for folks who are not entirely familiar with found poetry, you go through those physical or digital media and pick through sentences or words that have a calling to you. And you don't necessarily need to understand that calling, but just things that are called to you. And then you'll take those words, either physically cut them out of their piece of paper or copy and paste them into a new document. And once you have all of those cut out words, you're taking that and creating a piece of poetry, a poem, that is yours to begin with, that either is relating to a passion that you have, or just story that you want to tell, or just things that you have called to. And in that, you have created something that reflects who you are, reflects your identity and your interests, but you aren't the one who made stuff from the beginning. So it's a real lesson in how we are able to look at the vast world around us and pick out things that we can find our own identity in. And I won't read every single poem, but on our first image is it's a physical found poem, and the words that we see on here are mobility, imagine, together, limits, and then it ends with the best of life. And life has actually been created from three different found materials. So you can see this creation of the words and the intention and the creation. And then our second poem is a fully digital found poem. And the author of this poem just copied and pasted from some different news articles and magazine or like digital online magazine, and in order just took one word. And he actually just saw imposter and then went through different materials that evoked a sense of imposter or evoked a rejection of imposter. And the last line of that is, it's better to burn out than to fade away. So again, we see this beginning of the concept, and then ending with a line from a completely different thing that we as individuals are able to tie them together. And then we also, in the center, had another a physical sound poem, and this one was created by a lovely cohort member who does work in the film and television industry. And she had this like film reel piece of art, and then through it put different words that she identified with. And then in the end, the words that really stand out are real stories never end. And this particular participant, this was in week 2, and her week 13 activation project was a podcast all about accurate disability representation in film and television. So we're seeing this beginning of how we find ourselves and how that moves into our final projects. And the last is actually a found poem that our cohort member took from one specific piece of writing. So again, a new creative way of doing this exercise in a way that Jess, Joey, and I had not anticipated. Blackout poetry is quite similar to found poetry, but instead of cutting words out and putting them together, you take one singular piece of work and cross out the words that no longer relate to you, and what is left is a poem that, again, you created by removing the things that don't relate to you. So on the far left, we had a blackout poem that was actually from a book about love. And this participant kind of took the blackouts away of like love in a relationship context. And what was left was a poem about a practice of self-love, which was really beautiful. In the center, we have a blackout of a quote. I believe this one was from James Baldwin, and who was or is a writer that this cohort member was really inspired by. And then the last one that we see on the screen, actually one of our participants made a blackout poem out of the welcome letter that Jess, Joey, and I sent. So again, we're continually inspired by the way that our cohort members are teaching us about what these exercises can be and what these workshops can be. And then on the last is just ways that folks have combined these two art forms to create something new. So each poem on the screen is a collage of found poetry, of blackout poetry, and then also visual images. So our first poem, you've got some blackout poetry that is cut out and then added to other blackout poetry with some physical images as well, all glued together. And then that's got phrases like endless potential, hello, I feel more bearable every day. In the center, we've got a blackout and cutout poem, and that is actually on top of a photo that one of our cohort members took. And the last line is, those relationships are over. So really taking this idea of blacking out the things that no longer serve us and putting that in combination with art that this cohort member created. And then last is a blackout poem that is glued over some flowers and some colorful artwork. And we really love this exercise. We do it early on in the session. There's so many different ways to do it to make it accessible to you. And at the end of this exercise, you have a piece of artwork that you have created that we hope allows you to see both who you are as well as what you can create, and serves as an inspiration for how to approach the following weeks when you engage with something that you've never done before with the goal of coming out with a skill set or an object that you had created yourself. And that is what we do in our second week. And I'm going to pass it back to Joey, who's going to talk about a little bit about what we do each of our weeks and the leadership skills that we develop.
Thank you very much. That was lovely, Christina. Yeah, and she was explaining exactly what we do the second week, which is just one of the many weeks we do. And I'll take you through week by week just a few of the leadership skills that we work on, where each skill is related to a specific activity or something that we have in store, whether it be guest speakers or whether it be games or whether it be discussions that we have prepped and ready to go. So it's cool because each week is very different. And as we develop, as what Jess was saying, from that individual community and then social impact, we're actually creating new ways and developing new skills. So I'll take you through, if Christina can just change to the next slide. So we start off by setting expectations. This is through group discussions, introductions, establishing rituals. Every single cohort is different. And so we want to get to know each person and figure out what we want to do in that specific cohort and share those goals, share what we want to get out of futures, and share what we really want to be doing there. The next week and weeks after, we start developing self-awareness. So that's the poetry that Christina was talking about, where we have this creative activity that allows more identity development of the self. We then go a little bit further down and a little deeper into ourselves to identify what our own strengths are. So we have fun, we play some games while seeing how your skills actually interact with each other. So as you're seeing, we're starting to build, right now we're developing that internal individual self, but we're starting to grow that community aspect. We then lead to our next skill, which is vulnerability. So we have really important and deep discussions while still playing games and having activities that are all framed around navigating being vulnerable without oversharing, but what it takes to be vulnerable in such a different space that we're creating altogether. The week after that, we talk about intentionality. We do different self-care activities that center us and slow us down a bit, right? That's like deep breathing, that's stretching, that's doing different things that really, again, working on ourselves while we're still developing this community aspect. Then we get into a little bit more of fostering ideas. So this is when we again kind of want to start to plant the seed of what are we passionate about? What is something that really moves us? One small step workshop is something that we've developed that we can start to plant the seed on developing this project that is really special to you. That's really special to the individual. What's something that they care about? What's something that makes them angry or happy? Or any of these feelings, and how can we think about something that or create something that we really care about, that's ours, that we can share with each other, that we can share with the world. Then we go on to developing the skill of listening. So we talk about asking good questions. What is a really good question? How do we listen to each other? Specifically, questions that are related to disabled and neurodivergent guest speakers. So we have a lot of people coming in and sharing their own stories and what they've developed throughout the years. We have such amazing guest speakers that come in, and every single time I learn something new from them or from different people that we have. Then we have the skill of collaborating. We engage as a team and as a community and discover new things about our community. We might be going out and seeing different places, or even virtually going out and seeing different places on the map. What makes something an accessible location? And diving into that and what that really means for collaboration in a community. Then we again dive a little bit deeper into this project again, trying a plan. So we have more guest speakers that come in who are disabled and or neurodivergent and talk about what it takes to actually start and develop a plan that you might have. Planting that seed was just the first step. How do we actually implement that? What does it take to create that change that we want to make? So as we're getting to that social impact pillar of futures, that's when we're really starting to develop these ideas. Then we have one of my favorite weeks. This is challenge week. So it's something that we do that really gets out of our comfort zone somehow, somewhere. We've really developed a community at this point. Really strong core friendships have been made. And now is our time to feel comfortable enough with each other to really get out of our comfort zone and try something new. And I'm not going to give too much away with that because it's a really cool week. The next week after that is expansion and growth, right? So this is when we have an event that we all plan together as a community to recruit, we promote, we host. It's all hosted by our own cohort members, and it's whatever they want to do, right? Sometimes it's a panel discussion, sometimes it's a trivia night. And we all, pitch different ideas and different ways that we can really expand and grow this community that we're developing. And then as we come to an end, we celebrate. We have our closing ceremony. It's always such an amazing time seeing just the growth that we've all had as a group, the community we've developed, the friendships we've developed, and we really just have these core relationships that progress even after futures, as Jess was saying, and as we were alluding to, we have this alumni aspect that really is such a core part of futures as well, where we have more events. So it's never the end of futures. We're always developing, we're always creating this community and just adding more people to the group. So with that, I believe I'm going to be passing it now to Jess to talk a little bit more about the cohort information.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. Always exciting to see all of the different skills that we engage with throughout the cohort, as well as many others. Those are just our big anchors for every week. Hopefully by now you're like, oh, futures, you mean like thinking about your future, my future, like how can I improve? How can I be better for our futures? What are we dreaming towards in the future? So if you or someone you might know would be interested in a program like this, we have a few cohorts. We call them cohorts, which basically means different groups of people who are running the program or taking the program at the same time. We have winter cohorts starting in the next few weeks. So I'm blind lady, gonna come in a little bit closer so I can see specifically the dates and times. So right now we're looking at in a Wednesday evening or afternoon online cohort. So this will be held entirely over Zoom. And the timing is, we're starting, I believe it is January 21st. Yep. Until Wednesday, April 22nd. So that is 13 weeks, as we mentioned before. It's online via Zoom. There will be ASL interpretation provided, and it's from 1 to 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. So this is a once a week commitment. There is an online Zoom space, and there will also be an online virtual discussion space on Discord. And once you register, you'll get more information about that. But basically, it's where you can continue the conversations that we have over Zoom and bring them onto online. You can ask questions of your other participants. So that is also part of the access that we have. We also have a Tuesday online cohort. Right now, it is at capacity. However, if Tuesdays work better for you, you can get put on the wait list for Tuesday evenings. And so that is what time is Tuesday evenings? There we go. They're from 4 until 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And so if a Tuesday works better for you, we have a wait list that might open up if folks shift around in terms of their availability. But we are interested in having all kinds of different folks from across Canada. And if you join the online cohort in particular, that means there also will be people from, like, we have an in-person cohort that's here in Toronto, but there are people from a range of provinces that join this Zoom cohort. That is starting in January, just 2 weeks from now. And then starting in April, I believe we have on the next slide, Kristina. In April, we are starting a different version of the Futures program, which we are calling the Futures Book Club. And this is starting in April, so we don't really have like exactly the date and time, but it is less of a weekly commitment and more of a monthly commitment for the Futures program. And it's a book club, so reading texts, engaging with texts. That means podcasts, blog posts, books. And it's specifically going through all of those leadership skills that Joey just outlined, all 12 of those, all 13 weeks. However, it will be over the course of 12 to 13 months. So if you're the kind of person who can't commit to once per week, that's totally fine. There's an option coming up in April until next April or next March that will be once per month getting together. It means that you read on your own or engage with texts on your own, and then come together with a facilitator to have discussions about the content and really focus in on developing the skills and practical skills together. And again, with an online space, and that will be over Zoom as well. So if you're like, oh my gosh, meeting once a week starting in January seems like a lot for me, but maybe meeting once a month would be more your speed. You can also register for that right now as well in the same registration link as all of the registration links for every cohort. It's just a little bit of a different format to what Futures is, but it's still all of the beautiful, wonderful leadership skills, all of the identity building, community building, and social impact philosophy around Futures is just done a little bit differently to accommodate people who are also interested in a book club format, which I'm really excited about, and we'll be starting that in April. And I think we're now at the end of the presentation.